What is going on, New York Giants fans? Welcome to another video from Hit Squad Productions. In this video, I wanted to look at free agency coming up, which is coming up really soon. We're going to see how the Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson situation plays out, as well as the Nate Solder and Kevin Zeitler contract situation plays out. But I wanted to look at the running back position because I do think that there is a precedent need. Now, I don't think it's the biggest need, but I do think that it is a need that the Giants should look at. Now, if you look at the New York Giants and the upcoming season, outside of Saquon Barkley, they don't have any backs that are guaranteed to come back to the roster. Now, you could make the argument that they should sign Wayne Gallman. I'm going to give my thoughts on that later in the video. I know that there's the Mark Ingrams out there, the Amir Abdullahs. I get that, but I really wanted to look at this back that I genuinely think would fit the New York Giants scheme. I think he would complement Saquon Barkley best, and I think that it would make sense to at least bring him in due to the connections that we have with him. And that's free agent running back James White, formerly of the New England Patriots. James White, 29 years old, 5'10", 205 pounds. He played at Wisconsin in college and was drafted by the Patriots in the 4th round in the 2014 draft. Now, there's a connection with James White, obviously, with Joe Judge and Jerry Shaplinski, I believe that's how you say his name, being back in New England during their time there. And Judge likes bringing not only coaches, but obviously players that he's had history with. You look at players like Nate Ebner, Dion Lewis, but to me, James White is a back that we all know can couch out the backfield. He's that dual threat running back. He's a player that Tom Brady really relied on heavily, and there was games where James White himself had more production than Sony Michel, who I believe they drafted in the 1st round. You know, he's really a difference maker in that Patriots offense. And on top of that, if you look at the film, there aren't a lot of linebackers in this league that could keep up with James White, even with him being 29 years old. He's a little slippery, he's a little elusive, he's got some hands on him, and he can really hit the holes when you look at him as a runner. Now, that's not really his specialty, but he still has that really to him, obviously with him being a running back. But if you look at his career stats, 309 rush attempts, 1,240 rushing yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, paired with 369 career receptions, 3,184 receiving yards, 25 career receiving touchdowns. So his ability alone to not only catch out the backfield, but be a dual threat on the ground as well, would make him a perfect fit in this scheme. Now, we saw that really, that's something that Jason Garrett liked incorporating into his playbook, right? Having the backs catch the ball out the backfield. We liked doing it in a variety of different ways. Sometimes you would see the backs in the receiver position. That's really where Saquon Barkley also thrives at as well. And I think that when you look at it, having a back that not only could be a threat on the ground but in the air, I think it would really help Daniel Jones and help this offense. Now, he did have a down year last year, but if you look at the offense as a whole had a down year. New England had, I think it was one of the worst, if not the worst, passing offenses in the league. So I'm not going to fully put that on him. Now, in 14 games, he had 35 rush attempts, 121 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, paired with 49 receptions, 375 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Now, an interesting stat that I found was that Wayne Gallman, Devontae Freeman, Alfred Morris, Dion Lewis, and Saquon Barkley in 2020 combined had a total of 378 receiving yards. So even with James White having a down year, they barely had more receiving yards than James White. So to me, that really says something. And when you look at the year prior, in 15 games, he had 67 rush attempts for 263 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, paired with 72 receptions, 645 receiving yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns. Now, you could look at 18, where he had a great year at 750 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, and that's a lot for a back in itself. But on top of that, he paired that with 400 rushing yards at 4.5 yards per carry. Now, I think with Saquon Barkley coming back healthy, and with him coming back healthy, he's going to receive 90, if not 95% of the snaps. But having a player like James White would not only be a good security blanket for Daniel Jones, but I think that he would really complement Saquon Barkley and really be a player that could come in and still keep the offense rolling. I don't think that when you look at Wayne Gallman or when you look at Dion Lewis or any of the backs that we had last year, honestly, they didn't really put any fears in the defenses. Teams really stacked the box, and unless we had good blocking on a play, it really got caught in the backfield. Now, hopefully, we're going to see where this offensive line stands going into this season, but I really do think that James White could be a nice security blanket for a couple reasons. One, I think he'd be a great check down option for Daniel Jones, which we saw that happen last year, whether that was his choice or not. We saw Eli do that a lot too, but I think he'd be a great check down option for Daniel Jones. I also think that he'd be a good option in special teams as well. Now, I know there are some Giants fans that are already labeling Saquon Barkley as injury prone. I think that's still out there to be decided. I don't think that Saquon Barkley is injury prone. I want to wait to see what happens to him in the future. I don't put his injuries really on him when you look at the situations. Week 2, Chicago, and then the year prior, he sprains his ankle early in the season. So for me, I'm not going to label him as injury prone just yet. We have to see how his career really translates, and then we can kind of go from there. But think about it. The league knows the kind of back that James White is. He's a respectable back, and that's a dual threat option as well. Now, if he steps on the field, the opposing defense is going to have to take notice of that. And we didn't have that last year. Like I stated, no teams feared our running backs, and they would just stack the box. Not only that, you could draw up ways to have both of these guys on the field in certain packages. Look at Cleveland with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Those two complement each other, and both are threats in their respective rights. Both of those backs fit their offense well. They draw up ways to have sometimes both of them on the field. And when you think about it, if you have a lead back, you need a solid complementary back behind you. Look at Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. Look at Christian McCaffrey in Carolina. Shoot, you can look at the Bucs with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. To me, Giants, do the right thing. Let Wayne Gallman hit free agency if you have to. Go get you a James White. Now look, I know a lot of Giants fans are high on Wayne Gallman, and in my opinion, I think the Giants will bring back Wayne Gallman, really because he knows the scheme, he was productive in the scheme, had his best year in this scheme, and I think that we could get him on a cost-effective deal. But, to me, in my opinion, I'm not the biggest Wayne Gallman fan. I'm really not. I don't think that he would be the best fit in this Garrett scheme. Now, hear me out. Look, I understand he had his best year in this Giants offense, but I really think that Jason Garrett tailored his offense towards Saquon Barkley, obviously. But when Saquon Barkley went down, he had to redo this playbook a little bit. He had to adjust the scheme to fit the running backs that we had. Dion Lewis wasn't getting it done. Devontae Freeman, we went out and signed. He wasn't getting it done. Alfred Morris, Wayne Gallman, they were really the bell cows of this offense. But I just don't think that Wayne Gallman would be a really good fit behind Saquon Barkley. I don't think that Wayne Gallman is the worst back. However, I do think that he's a bull back, and I think that he's more of a volume type back, meaning that he needs to have a lot of carries for him to have really produced anything. At least anything significant. And he doesn't have the best speed, and even with that, his longest run wasn't because of his speed, and it wasn't because of a nice cut or anything like that. It was because of great blocking, and you saw that even with great blocking, he still got caught from behind. There were a lot of plays last year that we were saying that if we would have ran that same play with Saquon Barkley, it's a touchdown, or it's a longer play. So to me, I do think that the Giants would bring him back, but I would much rather look to go get James White. I think that James White would be probably the best back that we've had to complement Saquon Barkley genuinely, and I do think that we could get him on a cost-effective deal. Plus, wouldn't it be nice to have another dual threat on the field? This offense needs as much help as it can get, and bringing another dual threat on a cost-effective deal would only help out this offense. But let me know your thoughts below. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, leave a like, follow us on Twitter. What are your thoughts? What is a running back that you would like to bring in? Let us know. We'll see you in the next video.